Hello and welcome to GagruleNet. This is GagruleLive on Facebook. And today we have a pleasure to bring you and share with you the Syrian Queen of Syria, a documentary. Tell the story of 50 women from Syria, all forced to exile in Jordan, who came together in autumn 2013 to create and perform their own version of the Trojan Women, the timeless ancient Greek tragedy, all about the plight of the woman in the war. So that's what today we're going to show you. This was sponsored, among other people, was the Promise Institute for Human Rights. So as you could see, they bring in all kind of things, not just Armenian issues. But there were other people sponsoring this. And this was done in UCLA Northwest Campus Auditorium. So we thought to bring it and share it with you. So without further ado, here we go.
What we'll see tonight was an adaptation that was done with Syrian women who were refugees in Jordan in the year 2013. And there was a Syrian director of that particular project, but it was co-sponsored and underwritten by a UK company that specializes in these kinds of sort of theater projects around the world amongst displaced populations. So that's what we're going to see here. The actual structure for what's going to happen from here on is that this film is about 60 minutes long, and then we have a couple of respondents who can help to guide our conversation, but we don't have anyone from the making of this production or from this film here tonight because they're in the UK and Jordan is really far away. So instead we have really fabulous people from closer by. We have Fareed Majari, who is the director of the Goethe Institute here in Los Angeles. So the Goethe Institute is the German Cultural Foundation, but he has previously been the country director in Lebanon and Palestine, and also the program director for the Goethe Institute in Moscow. So he has experience in the area and also in documentary theater. And then we also have Amani Al-Sayed, who is a current MFA directing film student here at UCLA and is also from Jordan. So, oh, sorry, it's from Syria. I'm really nervous. Okay. They're here to help us guide conversation and think about the issues that are brought up in the film, but we don't have anyone from the filmmaking, so it's not sort of a Q&A about what happened. That is...
في بعد نهاية الألم الفاصلة أنا اللي عم بعطي الإشارة. نحن جاهزين؟ هدوء. 1 2 3 يلا. وصوتك لازم يكون عالي عالي عالي.
أول شيء لخصنا قصة يعني شو قصته شوي. بعد ما أمرت البلدة الترابية وقتلوا كل الرجال وأخذوا أولادهم النساء والسرايا عبيد وجاريات وأرسلوهن ولم يكتفوا وحرقوا البلاد كلها وأخذوا يقتلون النساء في قرى وتأخذ كل واحدة منهم نصيبها. ومنهم أخذوهن زوجات وخادمات في القصر وهذا كان كله نصيب امرأة طلابية وكانت ملكة.
شو صار مع الحكاية؟ شو صار؟ ما حدا لقطه منكم حكيت كل شيء
لأنه هيك أنا طلعت.
شنو؟ طيب شو عرفنا عن شخصيتها هيك بسرعة؟ شو عرفنا عن شخصيتها؟
هي أكثر وحدة كانت مستلمة ملك كبير وملك عظيم. هي زوجة ملك قرابة وفقدت كل ما تملك يعني من عائلتها لأحفادها لرجال البلد اللي عندهم يعني هذا
بيطلع يعمل صورة عن موقف حس حاله مظلوم.
ما شفت شيء انه الدكتور اللي شكل انه مجموعات ارهابيه ما شفت شيء انه الدكتور اللي شكل إنه مجموعات إرهابية اللي
يعني انه في كثير شغلات اللي عم نحكيها مقالة انه هي موجودة مو انه مثل الوضع.
برافو. اللي بدنا نسويه انه نحن بدنا شوي نتعرف ونقوي نرجع التنفس لأصله
بنهر عيشة محطوط على جنب الطريق وبربشين نازلين مني.
انظري كيف يجتمع الماضي والمستقبل في لحظة.
Initial question that I have, which is, why Greek tragedy? So in some ways, I think that it works. There are obviously many parallels between the play, The Trojan Women, and the events that are happening right now in Syria or amongst Syrian people. And I think Greek tragedy has a very powerful sort of a reputation in Western, quote-unquote, civilization as being the height of tragedy, very important, high culture, something to be paid attention to. So perhaps using Greek tragedy gives a sense of importance to the events that have been happening in Syria and the refugee crisis. But on the flip side, in what ways is the current Syrian crisis not at all the same as a Greek tragedy? So in what ways does using a Greek tragedy perhaps also obscure certain current events that are happening? So I can kick that to if you two have thoughts about the sort of the use of Greek tragedy today, perhaps, and if you have any other impressions or thoughts, reactions to the film immediately, feel free to also offer those.
Well, I think Greek tragedy is a very good idea because you could have used Shakespeare. You could have used The Tempest, which also starts with shipwreck and people losing their home. Troy is what's now Asia, Turkey, not so far from Syria, and Greek literature has been transmitted to now, transmission very often through Arabic literature, not in the case of Eurypides, but Aristotle, for instance. So I think it's a common heritage, so I think it's very close. It makes more sense than anything else, I would say. The other thing is, of course, there's a lot of artwork now that deals both here and in Europe. There's barely a theater that doesn't have refugees on stage and have them give their narrative to the audience. And there's always the argument of art can never live up to what really happened, to the tragedy that's going on, or it's appropriation, and there are a lot of course, reproaches being made. But I really feel that somehow you have to bring it to audiences, and even the most, I think the most direct representation, that's probably selfies, or the maps that the refugees drew. Actually, there was at the Red Cat, there was an exhibition with those maps, hand-drawn maps refugees drew on their way from Syria or Ethiopia, wherever, through Turkey or the Mediterranean, through the Balkans to Germany and Austria and Sweden. And even those really direct things need a curator at some point. They need someone as a translator between them and the audience, and that's the curator or the artist, like what's his name, Omar Abu. And so I think all those, it's treasures, and there's a lot of pitfalls on the way, but they mastered this pretty well, and I think it came across pretty direct.
What do you think, Amanda?
It's hard to speak after that, to be honest. I do agree with Mr. Faye in the sense that Greek tragedy is more of a universal literature that's known and studied by almost every culture I've traveled to so far. So that makes it more accessible, perhaps, for the film at least. But in a sense, I kept thinking about how it doesn't really matter how people perceive it as much as how therapeutic it was for these women, probably. It's like, yes, it's great that it's accessible, but and that it's documented, because it's important to show the world in a sense, but a lot of these workshops are actually just like for the women to achieve their dreams or get out of the cycle of being victimized, and just go out there and do something instead of just living every day for the next one. When one of the women wanted to be an actor, that really shook me, I think, to the core, is that I didn't want it to happen like this, but in a sense, like, it's a way to express yourself, which made me feel great. That speaking of that is actually Mr. Omar was the director, right? Yeah. He in the beginning of the film, he kind of situated himself as if he's the writer of the Trojan Women. So he was like, the Trojan Women gave voices to the women in the Greek tragedy, and I'm giving them voices. So it was, he made himself as if he's the writer, of these. He situated himself as if he's allowing them, to speak, and that was also powerful. Some initial thoughts.
Yeah. Any thoughts from the audience?
I have one.
Yes.
So it would be pretty difficult to take a group of refugees, Syrian refugees, and in 6 weeks have them perform a Shakespearean play. Shakespearean tragedies are very complex. The Greek tragedies are very simple. These are situations that have existed for 2,500 years, and they really express the essence of the tragedy and the hardships that these people go through. It's perfect.
Well, Greek tragedies certainly have a reputation or sort of a sense of being very poetic and about sort of stripped down themes, right? They're not really about personalities or convoluted plots. They're sort of like a single plot. So I guess that makes it maybe a useful scaffold for adding these contemporary ideas too.
Do you guys feel that it took some of the power away from the women, though, by having him say that he was giving them a voice and acting like he was writing it?
There is a certain. This question was for me, right?
Yeah, mostly, yeah. I mean, you can know.
Yeah, because there was a certain kind of cringe that I feel every time there is a male director directing women, either in the West or the East or anywhere. And there's a certain kind of delicacy that some directors are able to do it in a way that's more fluid. It's funny because I did have that reaction in the beginning when he said that. I was like, well, let me write something down. But then in reality, he really cares about them. And it's easy for us to kind of judge their relationship sitting here thousands of miles away. But in reality, coming from a society that these women are very, very shy, they've never done something like that. And a lot of them were talking about how their husbands wouldn't let them do things, you know. So it's a different kind of situation for them. And I would want with all my heart to have seen more agency given to them. And saying that they're the ones who are taking initiative and trying to tell the stories, but in reality they're not. They're exhausted from the war, and they just want anyone to help them break the cycle. And that's what I kind of saw, and it just made me feel more responsible, actually, as a woman director, to be able to reach out to more women and give them voices and actually enable them in a sense that makes me fade in the background instead of coming. And you know, so it's a good thing to think about, but I don't think it needs a lot more studying instead of, you know, kind of sitting back and be like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, interestingly, I want to add to this because, so this is the documentary of the 2013 production that was done in Jordan. But actually in 2016, last year, this production toured to the UK. And I was surprised to notice that there was a new director. The new director was a woman named Zoe Lafferty, who is British. So we have an interesting tension, sort of an intersectional tension, because in the first instance, Omar is Syrian. So, and is in Jordan and is fluent in Arabic, you know, and can really work with them for many weeks. And I agree, I also am like, oh, this director, and he's so bossy too at times where you're like, come on, man.
To give him the benefit of the doubt, I never studied directing in Syria, but Syrian directors are known to, women and men are known to be like dictators. They're like really a nightmare to work with. Yeah, and they could, like, if you disagree with the director, your career could go, like, you could disappear from the film or theater scene. So I don't know if it's him because he's a man. I've met women directors who are like that for Syria. So it's a cultural thing. I don't know to blame for that. But
yeah, and so then in the second iteration, it was a woman director, but she wasn't from the area at all. There's, in fact, a second documentary which we didn't show because we didn't want to spend all night here, although it would be interesting. And in the documentary, I can see that Zoe Lafferty does speak some Arabic, but it's again a different dynamic, which opens, I think, a larger question for us, which is exactly this question about how important is it to have these representations shared, right, with the world, with broader audiences. And how can we account for all the different groups who have to come together and have a hand in it in order to make the thing happen? Because I agree, it's complicated that the women are out front, and they're obviously, right, in danger. There are many concerns about their safety in the course of this.
So why it took this long, since 2013, till these things come up?
I mean,